Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, taxes and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. So in today's episode, I am also joined by Nicole. She is one of my friends who lives in Paraguay, one of my good friends in Paraguay. So she is originally from the US, but for the last 7-8-ish years has been an expat living in Germany, and now having lived in Paraguay for, I believe it's over a year at this point. So today we're going to dive into lifestyle in Paraguay, education, healthcare, all of the things that are important to know when you are either planning a move to Paraguay or if you're planning to stay there for short bursts of different years. We're going to dive into all of the things. So Nicole, welcome to the show. I love it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about Paraguay. I mean, spoiler alert, I really love it here. And I think it's really overlooked. So I'm very eager to share a lot of my experiences.
Okay, I love that. So let's dive right in. I'm curious, what were your conceptions or misconceptions prior to moving to Paraguay when you were in Germany and you found out, like, okay, I guess we're going to Paraguay. Like, let me pull out a map. Where is that?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, first off,
it's not Uruguay. It's not on the coast, and Paraguay and Uruguay don't even touch. I feel like for some reason not for some reason, they sound very similar, but yeah, they have nothing to do with each other really. I honestly didn't have many expectations before coming here because for me, the move happened really quickly, and I was dealing with a lot of bureaucracy back in Germany. But also, when I would look up Paraguay, there was like very little information out there because I was searching in English. I didn't speak any Spanish before Paraguay came into my life. So now I'm learning, but at the time I could search in English or I could search in German. So yeah, I think I got a little bit of a glimpse of what some of the streets look like from some people's YouTube videos, but I never felt like I knew what would be waiting for me. So it was an adventure, I would say.
Definitely. I mean, I remember having the exact same feeling when I first found out, like, oh, Paraguay. Okay, there's some interesting options here. What is Paraguay? Okay, so that was kind of, I think that's a lot of people's conceptions before they move to the country. So what has life living in Paraguay been like for you as somebody who speaks a little bit of Spanish, not completely fluent, but what is the lifestyle in general like in Paraguay?
I want to start with the language because I think that's pretty crucial when you're living somewhere, especially like I think if you're coming for a shorter period of time, maybe it's a bit different. But for anyone coming for longer, I mean, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff, right? And like the best way to do that is in Spanish. And I found with my, solid A1 Spanish when I got here, so that's like the beginner level, I was surprised by how much you could accomplish because that was not my experience in Germany with my beginner level. Actually, by the time I moved to Germany, I had like intermediate German, and it was still not very helpful because you need to know so much before you can talk to people. And in Paraguay, the people are outstanding. They're so kind, they're so helpful and willing to work with you. So I was really encouraged by the fact that I could go up there. I could be like, let's say I'm trying to buy like something for the house, and I'm like, busco una silla, like terrible accent, just 3 words. I'm looking for a chair. And somehow they would be like, okay, cool. Let me show you to where the chairs are and really like work with you. So that was encouraging. However, I will say I definitely felt like, okay, unless I'm hiding out in my home all day, I do need to learn Spanish because you can't expect that people in stores, people in cafes are going to speak English. I think once you get into like, paperwork stuff and you're working with like more specialized international people, yes, sure, you can speak in English. You can often even speak in German. But for everyday life, it will be very important to have a little bit of Spanish, and a little bit goes a long way. So I definitely recommend once you're here, sign up for classes, get going with that. And in terms of lifestyle, I would say um, it's really, really laid back. Not a surprising statement for a Latin American country, but especially for people coming outside of Latin America, I think there's a lot of like Western Europeans or even Eastern Europeans coming to Paraguay. And there's more of a schedule in Europe, and people tend to be on time, or there's more maybe accountability in terms of someone saying they're going to show up and then they show up. And it's not like that here, but I've experienced that as kind of a nice thing. Like once you reset your expectations, things get done. Things happen. But if someone says they're going to come at 4, they might come tomorrow, not at 4:00. So I think you just have to be a little bit prepared. But for that, the trade-off is everyone's really laid back. No one's really stressed or in a rush. And that'll soak off on you. And so I feel like I've definitely experienced like a lot of relaxation and release with the lifestyle here.
Yeah, I completely agree. Actually, I haven't spent as much time or lived there full time like you have, but the people are so kind and so helpful. And they are very willing, from also my limited Spanish, to assist you and like work with you and try to understand what you're saying. Whereas some other countries, it's like, you don't speak it completely perfectly. No, not interested. I'm curious your opinion and what you have personally experienced coming from Germany, speaking German. There's definitely larger German communities in Paraguay. So I'm curious what you know about that and what that has looked like for you.
Yeah, that was it's such an interesting topic to me. The German population in Paraguay. Okay, first off, for non-Germans, I think especially for North Americans, hearing that, the first thought is, oh, it's all those people that fled the Nazis, or it's the Nazis who fled after the war. And that's actually, I mean, okay, it does exist. That did happen also in Paraguay, but there were more communities of fleeing Nazis in Argentina, Brazil, etc. In Paraguay, the German population is very varied. So there were some people that fled even before the World War II, and also Nazis who fled like post World War II. That did happen. But for instance, there's a huge Mennonite community in Paraguay, and those are mostly German speaking. Actually, I think all of them are German speaking. Some of them came via Canada, so a lot of them are also English speaking. But there's an entire region in northern Paraguay where I navigate everything there in German. Like I planned a really complicated journey for my friend and I from Asuncion, where I live, to the Chaco, that's this region, over to Bolivia. And it was really complicated. And the only reason we're able to do it is because I speak German. So English was not helpful at all, but German was. And then beyond that, I mean, okay, there's like a section of the German population that's pretty far right and has like very specific far right beliefs, and there's sort of a colony of them. I guess that's one thing I was surprised to find when I got here. Like when I heard of Paraguay living in Germany, you hear about that group of people. There's a huge wave of people who moved around 2020, 2021 to because they didn't want to get vaccinated, and they had some kind of belief that Germany was going to force them to, and Paraguay wouldn't force them to. So a lot of people came for that reason. And I knew of those two groups, and then I associated like Nazis with German populations in South America. And all of those do exist, but I was surprised to find it's not just that. Like if I hear German being spoken, and if I went up to that person, especially in Asuncion, the chances that they're going to like say, like, I don't know, that I'm going to be shocked in any way by any strong belief systems that they have, pretty low. Like either people have those beliefs, but they've kind of, especially with the vaccination stuff, I think a lot of people maybe came for that reason, but kind of are like, it's not their whole identity. Like they're just people. But there's also just a ton of German speaking people that are here for other reasons. And there's also a huge, mixed population of Paraguayan German. So that's been really interesting for me. I don't think I would have expected before moving here that I use more German than I use English, but it's true.
That's why I wanted your take on that, because you're one of the very few people that I know who speak German. And in Paraguay, I mean, I had no idea prior to getting involved with Paraguay, let's say, that German was such a thing and there were so many Germans. I mean, even Casa Rica, which is a great grocery store, it'll have everything, especially if you're a foreigner, everything you need. I remember we went in there together and you were like, oh, it feels like I'm back in Germany. Like half the store was imported from Germany.
Yeah. I love that so much because when I have a little bit of homesickness for Germany, I just go to Costa Rica and buy my favorite products. And they also have a lot of North American products. So also when I have homesickness for the US, I can also go to Costa Rica. So it's awesome. And there's also a lot of German influence. Like you can find good baking, like really good baked goods, or even just bread. I met someone actually at Paddle, which we're going to have to talk about in a minute here, who's actually from the Netherlands, but they were saying basically everything that they've done here has been in German because there's just so many. So there are some people kind of like me who are not German, but that's the language that they kind of move with. So if anyone's listening who doesn't speak Spanish but does speak German, you might have an easier path here than you're anticipating.
Oh, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned about vaccinations. So before we move on to our other scheduled topics, I want to talk about this because I was surprised. So it was Peru, Paraguay, and then Mexico. And I think because I was in Peru, but I needed a vaccination for yellow fever, which I actually got at no cost, I guess, for being a resident. So I got that, but I know recently you were traveling in Ecuador, Colombia, and then you, if you're open to talking about it, got, I don't even know how you say it, dengue fever. And I know that in Paraguay and in surrounding areas, there's a lot of mosquitoes lately, and that's becoming increasingly more of an issue. So I'm curious if you know what that looks like for vaccinations and what it's looked like you dealing and navigating that and then the healthcare system in Paraguay.
Yeah, for sure. So first off, I had a friend come visit a while back, and she realized like on her flight that she might need the yellow fever vaccine because she was the one crossing the border to Bolivia with me. And it's for some reason when you're leaving Paraguay that you usually have to show it. So she got here and was like, oh no, I need this vaccine. And she had the same experience. She just walked into a hospital, asked around, where's that? And then they just gave her the yellow fever vaccine totally free. Really, really easygoing. So that was awesome. And also, I was traveling a lot in like December, January, including to the Northern Hemisphere where it's winter. So I wanted to get a COVID booster. And same deal. Walked into a hospital, asked around. They let us down some corridor, and then we got a COVID booster for free. Super, super easy. And I'm really surprised by that. I think it's really impressive how easy it can be to get a vaccine. Now with dengue, I did get dengue when I was in Paraguay. I didn't know I had dengue at the time. So I just like powered through it. And then afterwards, I had this like full body rash, which is very symptomatic of dengue. And so someone told me like, if you have that, then you had dengue. So now that's my next project is I need to find, apparently there's a vaccine. It's more recommended for people who have had dengue once. So the first time you get dengue, it's not bad. Typically the second time it can be deadly. So this vaccine is especially for people who've had it once. I'm hearing mixed reviews sort of how you can get it. So I've heard some people say you can't get it in Paraguay at all. You have to travel to like Argentina or even like the US to get it. I've heard someone else say, no, you can get it. So I think it's one of those, a lot of things in Paraguay work like this, where you have to ask around and someone gives you a WhatsApp number and somehow it works out. But it's not like you can just like go to Google and say, dengue vaccine, Paraguay. So in terms of navigating healthcare, I find that very challenging because what do you do if you don't know people to ask? You know, it can be really tricky. So definitely join expat groups, nomad groups, all that kind of stuff, just because you'll find contacts. But yeah, anyway, so that's my next project is to start asking the people who said, no, you can get it in Asuncion, where. I will say in terms of healthcare, I know more about cat healthcare because I came from Germany with one cat who unfortunately passed away back in October, but I've adopted 2 cats in Paraguay and I've gone to the vet with them a bunch. So I could talk about that often. I have not gone to the doctor that often for myself. I've done 1 or 2 visits here and there, and I think I'm also in the process of switching. I had a US based insurance company, and I'm going to switch to a German insurance company. There's a couple really good ones, and Germans are obsessed with insurance. Living in Germany, you insure everything in your life. And Germans are very serious about if they're traveling or living abroad, they're going to have the top of the line insurance for the lowest cost, because they also don't like spending more than they have to. So I tapped into my German network here in Paraguay, and they sent me some recommendations of good German insurances that would cover Paraguay. So that's going to be what I'm going to switch to. But I've also had lapses where I'm just like not insured, and that hasn't been an issue here. A lot of healthcare costs you can just pay for yourself. Like one time I had to get some tests done, and it was a kind of a whole set of tests, and I paid like $80 out of pocket. That for me, that was fine. And I was able to find, I mean, this is a very specific tip, but the hospital that's called Bautista, they have a decent amount of English speaking like doctors and staff.
Are you interested in becoming a global citizen and living a lifestyle by design in a country that aligns with you? If this is a lifestyle that you're seeking to create, we can help. Whether it be multiple residencies, citizenships, bank accounts, trust or company formations, we operate in 30 plus of the most tax-friendly jurisdictions around the globe to get you structured properly. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more and to get your global citizen journey underway today.
So again, with my limited Spanish, I could get through the registration process, and then my doctor visitation was in English. So again, it's a very specific tip, but I think that's where a lot of foreigners go when they do need something done.
Yeah, that's good to know. I've definitely heard mixed reviews about the healthcare in Paraguay. Not that thankfully you've had, extensive experience or inpatient experience, but I have heard that if you need something a little bit more serious, then you probably want private insurance just because the public is not so great. But I don't know if you hopefully not have experienced that.
Yeah, luckily I haven't experienced that firsthand, but I know from friends and stuff, yeah, usually private is like the way better way to go. And I mean, I'm not saying that cat medicine is the same as human medicine, but you can really tell through all of these vet visits I've gone to the way that access is an issue in healthcare. I would say everyone I've dealt with, for cats or humans, is very competent, very well educated. They're reading up on journals, scientific journals all the time. So I haven't had a problem so far with people who don't seem qualified. I would say I've felt like the people are very qualified, but they're very limited in their resources. So I think especially if you have something more complicated or a more expensive disease, to be honest, because the average Paraguayan is not going to be able to afford really intense healthcare services. So then there's just not an industry for it. So I would say that's something to keep in mind. And it would be probably important to have some kind of plan for, does my insurance also cover other locations if let's say something horrible like cancer happens? And I mean, I don't know if cancer specifically is treated well in Paraguay or not, but imagine something where you would have to relocate to get sufficient healthcare. It's a possibility, but I think, again, your day-to-day, if you're relatively healthy and you have a decent insurance, you should be okay.
Yeah, I have heard that cancer, it's tricky in Paraguay because exactly what you said, they don't always have the resources. And so I have heard that some expats unfortunately end up living in other countries just due to the healthcare that they need. So I think that's always important prior to relocating to know that, especially in Latin America. Some of these smaller countries just don't necessarily have the infrastructure or the people. So let's chat about making friends and community in Paraguay. You've been there for, I think it's a year now, right?
Yeah,
what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I have to say I was very slow to start Operation Make Friends. So I feel like I'm really getting into my community in the last couple months here. In the first 9 months, I think I was really slow with it for personal reasons. But I have to say, honestly, even during that phase where I wasn't really up for because putting yourself out there, it's like a lot of work. And I just wasn't up for it at the time. And even during that phase, I didn't feel like an intense loneliness because the Paraguayan people are so friendly and so warm. Even when I would just go to a restaurant or like a grocery store or run errands, I felt such a warmth and a friendliness that I didn't feel isolated. So I would say that's something really nice. For instance, in Germany, in German winter, if you're not making friends, if you're lonely, you can feel so lonely because you're not going to small talk with people at stores and stuff. And the waiter is going to be really to the point with you. So for me, I really appreciated that here. Like I felt comfortable all the time. In terms of making friends, well, one thing is I feel very comfortable approaching Paraguayan people because they're so open and friendly. I don't, again, I'm comparing this a bit to Germany, but like, I wouldn't just go up to a German person and say like, oh, hey, I love your shirt. Where'd you get it? Or like, oh, what are you drinking? If we're at a bar, like, oh, what did you order? Is it good? I would never do that. Well, I have done that and I learned not to do that anymore. It's not something that's like culturally normal. It's a bit odd to do that. So here you absolutely can. And that doesn't mean you're going to be like best friends with that person, but you could fall into conversation. So I would encourage people, like, if you feel extroverted enough to put yourself out there in that way, give it a go. In terms of what's really helped expand my community here, definitely through different like online groups. That's where you and I found each other. And I found even if you just find one person that you actually connect with, it's so nice. It's such a relief. And then that person introduces you to other people and it's kind of a chain reaction. So, for instance, you connected me with this group that meets up to play paddle every week. And that has been so fantastic for so many aspects of my life here, including that now I have like a weekly sport/social gathering and I'm meeting new people through that. And I have to say I'm in Paraguay not due to, I don't know, any of the reasons I listed for the German population. I'm also not here for any like financial reasons. Like I know you and a lot of other people are really motivated by finances to be here. And I'm here on my husband's job contract. Like, so it's kind of unrelated to all that. So sometimes I feel intimidated. Like, should I join that group because they're talking about, I don't know, taxes. And that's not something that I have so much to say on. But something like paddle is so nice because it's this like third party thing that you're both just doing the sport. And then you get to talking as people. And it doesn't matter if someone's here for one reason and you're here for another. You can find ways to connect. So I think that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, I love that I connected, and even that I connected with the paddle group, which I'm thinking now, like, I don't remember how that was, but I would say for me, like, not that I'm in Paraguay full time like you are, but I think every connection that I have made has been through the WhatsApp group, and there's a Facebook group, but I think things really go down in most countries in the WhatsApp groups, and then you can join, different channels. And I think I met you just by posting on Facebook and being like, hey, we're Nicole and Eddie, and we're going to be in the country for a few months, and like, we would love to meet. And then you commented. And I mean, it doesn't always work out because sometimes you don't vibe with people, and that's okay. But that's how I've met my closest friends, who you've also met another one of them as well through paddle in Paraguay. So I think it's really just like, once you're ready, putting yourself out there, especially if you're going to be there longer term.
Yeah, exactly. And what you say about WhatsApp groups is definitely true. Like the other kind of social circle that I have is through the German community. So there's a group of just like Germans in Asuncion, and they're always exchanging, events or meeting up. Through my husband's job, we met some people, and I would say like there are definitely ways. You just have to be willing to kind of put yourself out there and go for it. And I also really appreciated that you put yourselves out there because I can do it when I need to, but I'm naturally a little bit more timid at first. So I didn't like have the guts to like put myself onto the Facebook group and say, hey, I'm here. But I could respond to you. So I think there's space for all versions of extrovert, introvert, as long as you're just willing to like take a little bit of that risk and also be a little open-minded. Like I think when I was living in Germany, there are so many Americans in Germany, so many foreigners in Germany in general, it was really easy to like get hyper specific in who your friend group is. And or maybe not really easy, but it was doable. And I have to say, coming from Germany, and again having like these really specific expectations or almost fears, I would say, based on what I was reading, it was such a relief to find out like it's not really like that. And if you're just a little open-minded, that maybe you are going to find a lot of ways to connect with someone who has different beliefs than you. I think that's something I'm really learning from the Paraguayans. They're so open-minded and welcoming, and I'm soaking up a little bit of that, and that's been really helpful too.
I love that. Yeah, I love hearing that you're learning from them. And, there's definitely more foreigners, I would say, rising. Whether they come and go or stay full time is up for debate. But yeah, it's really interesting to, hear your perspective on what that has looked like. So the last topic that I want to touch on is education. Your partner is in education in Paraguay. And I know that you're not enrolled in education or anything like that, but I'm curious from your perspective what you have seen with the education for children or even, university, college in Paraguay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my partner works in one of the international schools, and I think that's a top choice for a lot of internationals coming to Asuncion or Paraguay in general. I would say Asuncion doesn't have the same density of international schools as some other capitals do. So that's one thing to keep in mind in terms of like setting your expectations. You're not going to have a bajillion to choose from, but you'll have a couple to choose from. They do exist. And again, you come into the question of resources. It's not an international school in Singapore who has endless amounts of money to throw into like nice classrooms and top of the line devices. I don't think you could find a school like that in Paraguay right now. He works at what's viewed as the top or the top two international schools in Paraguay, and they still struggle with certain like technology, or like the setting of the room is like a little bit loud, so it's not like flawlessly set up, I would say. And I think in terms of a first impression that might shock people, but I would say like stay, keep looking, because it might just be how the room looks, but I think the level of education can be really good. Those international schools are quite expensive by local standards, but pretty affordable for anyone with a foreign income. So, international schools in a lot of other places in the world means thousands and thousands in tuition dollars per month. And if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of them here are like $300 to $500 per month. Don't quote me on that, but it's much better. It's much more imaginable. And it's a good level of education. I mean, I can say the German school is importing German teachers to teach. That's why we're here. There's an American school that I know is doing the same. The local teachers are also quite good. Sometimes there might be a little bit of a limited access with books. Like for instance, I'm in a Spanish language school, so it's not the same as like a K-12 school system. But my language school, for instance, when I started, I actually had to wait a couple months until other people at my level were doing a class. So they're just in a numbers game, like there weren't enough people to form a class. So that was interesting and unexpected for me. Now that I am in a class and we have a textbook, it's difficult and expensive to get the physical textbook. So we all have to use digital textbooks, which you can do. It's fine. It's not my personal preference. So that's an adjustment, but you make it work somehow. And I would say that's kind of a theme. And then the quality of my Spanish lessons is so high. My teacher is fantastic. And I've had her individually as well as in a group. And I'm really impressed by her skill set and her I'm not sure exactly on paper what her qualifications are, but you can tell she's qualified. She knows what she's doing. She does a great job of saying this is Paraguayan Spanish. And if you wanted to know how it is in other countries, it's this word. It's great. And I think, again, with the international school system, it would be a similar thing where you're having really good teachers. You might just have to be a little bit flexible in your expectations for, I don't know what the desks look like or the textbook access, but it's going to work out. And I think you can have a good education here.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely say international education is the way to go if you're looking for Paraguay. But there are like where your partner works, like there are still really good international schools, as I think there are in most capitals, at least, if not in most countries. I'm curious, what would you say for a foreigner would be the average monthly income that they would need to live comfortably?
I guess it would depend on certain aspects of your lifestyle, but I'm comfortable sharing, for instance, we rent a house and it's just the two of us and our two cats. So we absolutely do not need all the space, but we are here and living our luxurious life while we're here. So we have a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house that has, private parking, a backyard with like grass and a pavilion for your barbecue, and everything is brand new in the kitchen. It's a really nice place. And we're paying 6,500,000 guaranis per month. I just put an episode out of my podcast where I broke down all of our expenses in guaranis and then the currency conversion rate. I know in total we pay around like 1,100 euros, so maybe $1,200, something like that. But that's including utilities, internet, phone. We have a cleaner that comes once a week. That's including her fee. Rent itself, I think, is closer to like $900 US.
Yeah, I just did a conversion. It's like 880 USD.
Yeah. So you can absolutely find cheaper places to rent, no doubt. But again, we want it to like really, I don't know, we're going to have to go back to Germany one day, and we were paying more for a 1-bedroom apartment. And, like for us, this is like a unique opportunity to just live it up. So we're happy to spend the same amount we were spending in Germany, but get way more. So for us, like, then it's about we're usually talking in euros, so like 1,000-ish euros, 1,100, 200 just for living expenses. And again, I said cleaning and stuff like that. And then gas is pretty cheap here. Groceries are not bad. We eat out a lot because the food in Paraguay is insane. I don't know if you guys have talked about this on your podcast before, but I could talk for hours. I think Paraguayan cuisine is great, but I also just think people here know how to cook and their ingredients are just good. So you can walk into literally any restaurant. It could be like not even a restaurant, just a kiosk where some dude is barbecuing on the grill in the front. Or you could walk into, we went to this like hole in the wall ramen place the other night. You can expect a high quality. It's just going to be good. I don't know if it's always going to be authentic in terms of international cuisine, because again, are they accessing the right ingredients? Who knows? But the quality and the experience is going to be top. I don't know, actually, do you guys agree? Because your partner's a chef, so I don't know, maybe, I don't know how his standards line up.
So it's so interesting that you say that, because it's a very different perspective for me, because I don't eat meat. And I think if you don't eat meat in Paraguay, like Paraguay, we've traveled to most of the countries in Latin America, and Paraguay is the country where I hate eating. Like, eating is such a freaking struggle for me, but I think if you eat meat, it's a completely different story. But it's like my options are sopa or chipawazu, or like just buying whatever from the grocery store, like something frozen. And for me, it's a really difficult country to eat. But I think, like I said, if you eat meat, it's a totally different story.
Yeah, that's true. I can understand that. Actually, like when we came from Germany, we were almost fully vegetarian. And that dropped. Like we started eating meat again pretty quickly. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, anyway, I guess my point with all of that is to say, like, we don't cut corners with food in terms of getting nice ingredients to cook at home, buying kitchen gadgets. We're ordering like a custom island for our kitchen right now, and it's going to cost like $250 to $300, including like delivery, installation, and specifically our preferences with the granite countertop. Like, we can splurge on these things and it's not a problem. So in terms of monthly budget, I would estimate, like, combined, my partner and I, maybe we spend like 1,500 a month. Is that true? No, that seems high. Maybe 1,200, 300. I don't know, somewhere in that range. But again, and that's for us, like, living it up. That's going to athletic, like going to the paddle or going to gym now and again, doing like a concert if there's something good going on. We're definitely in like a yeah, just buy it, just go for it kind of mindset. So he's got all these instruments he's been buying here. Like, so us splurging, that's the budget. If you're wanting to like really maximize your savings, again, you can. But if you just want to relax and enjoy life, I guess that would be, that's at least what we spend.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds about accurate. I will say though, I feel like that pricing is very much so a local who, like if you're renting from Airbnb and you're in like a Shopping Mariscal place or close to Shopping Del Sol, I mean, Airbnbs can be, if you're in a good location, I would say starting at around like 900, but that's minimum per month, probably going to around 1500. And that's just from, my experience with Airbnbs. Of course, there's really nice hotels where it could be a few thousand plus. So I would say to me that your budget sounds, about right if you're living the local lifestyle. But if you're more of a tourist, just there for 1 or 2 months, you don't have a rental contract, then it could definitely be a little bit higher. And I actually see a lot of clients come in and I think, the misconception is that Latin America is just always super cheap. And then Paraguay is really inexpensive because what the heck is Paraguay? And like nobody knows this country. And so I have a lot of clients who come to me and they're like, oh, I want to pay $500 or $600 a month for rent. And it's like, okay, that is possible in like cathedral area where it's not going to be so safe at night and it's not going to be like a beautiful luxury place and maybe one bedroom. Like it is possible, but you're not really going to be living it up, quote unquote.
Right.
So I think there's all budgets in Paraguay, but I would say like $1,000 a month for rent is pretty standard for like a decently nice place.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I'm surprised to hear like it is that much more expensive for short term, but I mean, I guess it makes sense. So for anyone that is looking for like a longer stay, I think it can be really good. And I think also like a lot of my joys of living in Paraguay are just in like the little everyday things, like just the pleasure of sitting on my balcony and sipping tereré and watching the sunset. It's like so beautiful. So yeah, I've definitely met several people who like one of the main things they love here is it's just the cost of like you can live a more luxurious life than you could probably live in your home country, depending where that is, for a similar amount of money. And yeah, I've joked this, like I didn't grow up in a family with like a ton of money. Like we were fine, but we would never be called rich compared to everyone around us. And that's always been true for me growing up and as an adult. And that I'm fine with that personally. And like, as long as I have what I need, I'm happy. But I have to say, like in Paraguay, I am rich and it's nice. It's really nice. We talk about all the time, like, oh gosh, having to go, like, how do we shrink our lives again? Like we're so used to being able to have all this space and, there's a special room for music. There's a special room for like, we just got a kitten and the kitten has a bedroom until he's ready to be around the house. And like, there's a library and it's so nice having all of these spaces. Whereas in Europe, it's like, that's one room and it has to be everything. So I fear the day when that comes, but until then, yeah, let's go for it.
I love that. I love that you guys are living it up. Well, if you are interested and you're listening in residencies, whatnot, feel free to reach out to us. All of our links are below. And if you're interested in lifestyle, Nicole, you also have a podcast where you talk a lot about being an expat and living that lifestyle. So where can people find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at the Expatcast, and wherever you're listening to this podcast, you can also find my podcast. So just search for the Expatcast. It's got a little bike logo, and I've been doing it for years now. So when I was in Germany, I was interviewing different people who are living somewhere that they're not from. I take the term expat very loosely, like it could be an immigrant, whatever, nomads. But now after a year in Paraguay, I love it so much. It makes me so sad that there's not more information out there about it. And it also kind of pisses me off that so many people spend 6 months traveling the whole continent of South America and they skip Paraguay. And I've literally been traveling in like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and people ask like, oh, Paraguay, like, should I go there? It seems like nothing's there. And I get a little heated. I'm like, how dare you? Amazing food, delightful people. Yeah, you're not going to have a mountain range. You're not going to have the coastline, but there's a lot of beauty here. So to share more information about Paraguay, to highlight all of the beauty that it offers. I started a series within my podcast called Tereré Talks. Again, tereré being this like mate drink that's typical in Paraguay. So we're doing 10 episodes sharing different aspects from transit, home, and like I really break down all the home costs and explain what a Paraguayan home is like. We've got an episode coming up about traveling within Paraguay, dining experience, shopping, all this kind of stuff. So you can come check out the Expat Cast for a lot more information on that. And by the way, I always need cat sitters now and again. So if any of your listeners want to cut back on the rent, they can reach out and come watch my cats.
Love it. Well, thank you for being here, Nicole. Thank you for sharing so much good info about Paraguay, and I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait till you're back here and we can have vegetarian asado in the backyard.
Yeah.
You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I would appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials, and of course, be sure to tag me. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me on this global citizen journey, and I'll see you in the next episode.